There. Hey there. So I know this may sound crazy, but you don't have to use social media to market your podcast and get listeners. So hear me out first. When I got started, I used my website to host my episodes, and then I would tell people to go there and listen. Or if I had a conversation with someone offline, I would tell them about my podcast and where to go listen. It was all organic. Okay. So I get 100% that social media is the it for traffic. But if you could get traffic from other sources, why not? Right. So in this episode, I'm going to talk about how to promote your podcast without social media. And if you're liking this, definitely give me a review and tag me on Instagram. I would love so much to hear from you. The first thing I am going to suggest is networking events. Networking events is so fun both online and offline. Now, online and networking events is even more fun because you can actually communicate with more people. For example, I'm on Alignable. I don't know if a lot of people know about Alignable, but I'm on Alignable and they do networking events all day long. Like they have so many different networking events. They have hundreds of people sign up for these totally free, and you go into the events, you sign up, you get notifications and everything, and then you do kind of like a speed dating type of thing. So they give you about 7 minutes. It's seven people for 7 minutes, I do believe. Is it 7 or 10? It's one of the minutes, I think so. But it's 7 minutes for seven people, and you're literally talking to seven people a day. Like, how cool is that? That you can actually have a conversation with seven people within an hour time. Imagine having to do two or three of those, and you're talking to at least 14 to 20 people a day. During that time, it is a perfect time to mention your podcast. Hey, I have a podcast about XYZ. In my case, I have a podcast called the Hello C.S. Dorsey Podcast, where I interview business owners and entrepreneurs talking about their hello moments and basically help get tidbits for people to take action steps. So when I go on there, I talk about it and they're like, oh, really? Well, let's connect. So you can actually connect. And once you connect, go ahead and shoot them the link to your podcast. It is a great way to actually get more listeners for your podcast. So you do networking events, you could do outside events, the local chamber of commerce, or I know a lot of real estate agents do a lot of networking events. You can, if you're a real estate agent, you have podcasts, talk about your podcast. Put your podcast link or URL on your business card or do a QR code where they can actually scan it on their phone and it goes directly to your podcast. So those are some of the ways that you can get listeners without social media. It's more of an organic strategy. Well, social media is an organic strategy, but this one is more authentic because you actually met the people. You actually met the person. And number two, you could be a guest on other podcasts as well. So if someone you know, or if you're in groups and someone is reaching out, say, hey, I need a guest for my show, you can pitch yourself. There's a really awesome group that I always tell my students and people who I'm teaching how to launch a podcast. I tell them to go on Facebook, search Be a Guest, Find a Guest. It's a podcast collaboration. They have the club and then they have the podcast collaboration free Facebook group where you can actually go in. Make sure you read the description of the group and the instructions on how to do so. You go ahead and pitch yourself and you say you're looking to be on podcast. There are some people on there that's looking for guests as well. Sometimes that can be a little overwhelming. I've experienced it, but it's a really great way to get yourself on podcasts. So that's another way that you can actually talk about your podcast is be on other people's podcasts and it kind of like lasts a long time. Okay. Talk about that shelf life of podcasting. Okay. So number three, your tribe, your circle. Ask 5 to 10 people who you know to promote your podcast and give them a little incentive. Like give them a $5 Starbucks card or a gift card of some sort, very small, for promoting your podcast. I actually took this idea, not took it, but I actually got this idea from a previous guest. Her name is Barbara Masonette, and it's episode 26. How will you show up if you didn't take things personally? I really love that episode. And also, she was in my Christianpreneur Summit. And in the Christianpreneur Summit, she actually talked about having like your own little mini marketing team, which I thought was like brilliant. So you don't have to spend ads or run ads for any promotion or anything that you're doing. So the idea actually stemmed from her. I have to give credit where credit is due, but it's a really great way to actually get your podcast out there. You could do like a podcast swap. You can have someone who have an email list actually email their email list your episode and you do it in exchange. So it's so many different ways that you can promote your podcast without social media. If you're completely burnt out on social media, you can do these strategies. These strategies is a little bit more personal, more, I would say, one-on-one. But the beauty in it is if they can share it to their audience, it could definitely be huge. So to recap, number one, networking events, both online and offline. Number two, be a guest on other people's podcasts. And number three, your tribe, your circle, ask 5 to 10 people to promote your podcast. So I'm really happy that you listened to this episode on today. I really hope this was helpful. And I will see you on the next episode. Bye.